Our story today is the beloved story from John, the wedding at Cana. Privacy isn't what it used to be. Most of us have a window into our lives, and depending on how far we decide to keep that window open, it can show the world, the whole world, a lot about us. But of course, we try very, very hard to only present the best side of our lives. You know, the good stuff. The successes, the happiest times, the most awesome vacays, the best pics. The good stuff. You know how advertisements, the ones that aren't being funny, show life in an ideal manner? You know, beautiful people, beautiful houses, beautiful cars. Well, those windows we tend, whether they be on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, most of us, as we write the story of our lives there for others to see, do it like we're writing an advertisement. But of course, we also know the truth. We know how we hurt inside. We know our insecurities. We know the shiny life we present isn't what would be seen if we really let the world peek through the window. What we're less good at, of course, for we are human, is realizing we're all in the same boat. Realizing what's true of us is true of everyone as they paint a shiny, perfect life for others to see. We don't see that all the marriages being talked about are not perfect. We forget that the beautiful people we look at have the same body image hang-ups that we have. We don't see those friends that folks brag about are the same friends that sometimes hurt them. We don't see the loneliness, emptiness, questioning, fear, pain. And because of that, if a chink in our armor shows up in our window for others to see, if we don't get enough likes, if a bad picture gets posted, or if a comment reveals a weakness or simply something we did not want revealed, we feel that ancient human emotion, shame. Scientific American says this about shame. Shame is the uncomfortable sensation we feel in the pit of our stomach when it seems we have no safe haven from the judging gaze of others. We feel small and bad about ourselves and wish we could vanish. Shame is a universal emotion. It's also probably one of the most useless emotions out there. Now, sure, sometimes we do something we should do or do not do something we should not do because we don't want to feel the shame of it. And that's good. But most of the time, shame cripples us for no good reason at all. John Crossan, who studies the historical Jesus, notes that the entire culture of the Mediterranean at the time of Christ, and yes, before and after, was based on shame. And this is most easily observed in the treatment of women. While men, as you can see with a close reading of the Old Testament, did pretty much anything they wanted to do from a sexual standpoint, women carried the honor of the family with them, sexually and otherwise. To the point that often, even if a woman was raped, her honor was taken from her, and she was no longer eligible for marriage. Remember for a second that woman dragged before Jesus for stoning because of adultery. Where was the guy? Probably safe at home. The woman was perceived to be the problem. Society was held together, in large part, by women maintaining their role and avoiding bringing shame on the family by complete subservience. And of course, shame is still very much with us, and the vast majority of us have a healthy fear of it and an intense desire to avoid it. Well, I started by saying privacy is not what it used to be. We didn't have these windows into our lives even a few years ago. And A few years even before that, when I was a kid, riding in the car with my mom and dad at night, I wasn't on the phone gathering likes and trying to be funny or cool for friends sitting at home on their phones. No, I was in my own world. I was safe. Looking out the window, watching the stars, dreaming. And of course, this was even more true in the extremely private culture of Jesus. When a door of a house shut, only the people who lived in there knew what was really going on in probably an even more intense way than is true now. But even so, there were windows back then. Times when a family was on display before the community. And one of them, a major league one, was a wedding, a party. And this party, like all parties, had rules. Certain things were expected, and the most expected thing was wine. Now, in our time, when we are rightly concerned about substance abuse, this sounds maybe a bit odd, but in the day of Jesus, wine was the mark of a celebration, to the point that when the wine ran out, the party was literally over. You know how sports have unwritten rules? Like you don't throw at their batters because then their pitchers have to throw at your batters. Or how in soccer, if someone seems to be seriously seriously injured, it's customary to kick the ball out of bounds so play stops. Rugby had an unwritten rule for years and years and years, and that was the ball was not to be passed forward. That rule worked for many years until some folks started to break the unwritten rule, and that's when they had to write it down. Well, the unwritten but totally expected rule for a wedding was that if the wine ran out, you had to get up and politely say goodbye. And you had to treat the family as if that party had ended at precisely the right moment, no matter how disappointing or premature this ending might be. But at the same time, from that moment on, this family was going to be that family. The family that was publicly embarrassed, the family that did not plan properly, the family that couldn't provide for the guests that they invited. They were going to be that family, and they were going to bear that shame. And you know what? There wasn't going to be tomorrow. No, there wasn't going to be another window, a new post, a story, a joke, a picture to cast them in a better light. This ball of shame was getting thrown against the wall, and that puppy was going to stick. So, when Mary, who very much puts her son up to this, says to Jesus they have no wine, she is employing the gift many women have by seeing, and yeah, I'm guessing a little bit here, the potential for pain the situation could bring this family. And Jesus, like a guy, doesn't initially see the issue. Woman, what's this got to do with us? Men. And remember, Jesus was also human, and this might be the most guy-like human thing Jesus says in Scripture. Men tend to compartmentalize. Women see the connection of things beyond the immediate situation or problem and tend to respond to the needs of the whole. Men tend to be waffles with everything in our little squares, nicely separated. Women tend to be spaghetti, seeing the connectedness of all things. Michelle Shirk even has a curriculum that emphasizes this that she uses with senior high. But Mary knows her son, and he's a good kid. And she's far from powerless, and she doesn't even respond to him. She just tells the servants, do whatever he says. And Jesus does respond. The result is the day, the party, the family is saved, and there is ridiculous abundance. In a sense, Jesus saves this family and offers us a hint on how to live, even if this act does not seem particularly religious. He offers us a hint by showing in the situation where our focus should always be. Shame is always born out of a failure to live up to an expectation, whether that expectation be that we look a certain way, act a certain way, or build our lives a certain way. Shame is born out of a failure to live up to an expectation that we have also chosen to judge ourselves by. And while some expectations have their place, some are ridiculous and only hurtful, and judging ourselves by those is only destructive. And our life will never be made complete in concerning ourselves with them or following them. The thing that will make our life complete is participating in the incredible love of God. The ministry of Jesus would be, in so many ways, about knocking aside the silly ideas, rules, laws we create for ourselves, and instead focusing on two things: loving God and loving others. And recognizing, as we throw ourselves into this abundant love of God, the abundance we receive in return. It happens when we heed the words of Mary and do as he says. Let's remind ourselves of what's important. So much of what we worry about is not. So much of what we fret about is only hurting us. So much of what we get angry about is not important in the end. What is important is love is there for us. The abundant love we get and receive by acting in our lives for Jesus. Let go of useless expectations and remember that love. Revel in it. Share it. And the party will go on.